Have you ever heard of a comic book so controversial it sparked a national firestorm? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. The comic is called Simpson, and it's this indie webcomic that did way more than just tell a story. It kicked off this huge, furious debate about art, reality, and censorship, and that debate, it's still going.
Right from the start, this was the mission of its creator, Jaden Lee. And you really got to hold on to this idea holding up a mirror, because it's the key to everything that happened next. See, Simpson was never meant to be an easy escape. Nope, it was designed from the ground up to be a confrontation. All right, so to really get why Simpson hit like such a shockwave, we first have to understand the world it was born into. A world it was basically made to defy. Think back to 2019. The comic scene was all about glossy stories of good versus evil, right? You had your familiar heroes, your established universes. It was pure entertainment, designed to let you check out for a while.
And then Simpson just shows up online. And it was the total opposite of all that. It was self-published with zero marketing budget. It was stark, it was gritty, and it was unapologetically real. It followed this flawed detective through a morally bankrupt city where there were just no easy answers.
And people noticed. I mean, they noticed fast. Just think about this. 50,000 followers in only 3 months. This wasn't some slow burn, you know? It was an absolute digital explosion. People on forums like Reddit were already all over it, calling it a gritty masterpiece that forces you to think. A huge part of its appeal was the art style. It was this deliberate callback to classic film noir. You know, the heavy shadows, the sharp black and white contrasts, the morally gray hero. The look wasn't just for show, it perfectly captured the comic's whole vibe of moral decay and hidden truths.
But look, the gritty style wasn't what made it so controversial. The real firestorm started when its fictional world began to feel, well, eerily and maybe intentionally, just like our own.
Pretty early on, there was this corrupt mayor storyline that felt incredibly familiar to a lot of readers. It mirrored the details of the very real 2018 Riverdale scandal so closely that people started asking, wait, is this just commentary or is it basically reported?
But here's where things really caught fire. The Wake Up Movement storyline. So this arc in the comic showed a grassroots movement protesting police violence, and get this, its release lined up perfectly with the massive real-world protests happening in 2020. For a lot of people, this wasn't art imitating life anymore. No way. This was art actively participating in life.
And by reflecting reality so directly, Simpson stopped being just a comic book. It became a cultural lightning rod. It totally split its audience and basically forced everyone to pick a side.
And the arguments on both sides were really passionate. You had critics worrying that the comic was just glamorizing despair, that its portrayals were irresponsible. But then its fans would fire back, saying it was about freedom of expression, a necessary shock to the system that refused to sugarcoat how things really are.
And this debate wasn't just happening in online comment sections. Big industry voices started to weigh in. The Comics Journal called it a necessary shock that was forcing the entire industry to rethink itself. And that's when you knew. Simpson wasn't some fringe comic anymore. It was something everyone had to take seriously. But the conversation was about to move way beyond online forums and critics' columns. The whole battle over Simpson was escalating, and it was spilling out into schools, libraries, even the halls of power.
So, the push to censor it really kicked off in early 2022. It started with debates in California school districts. But by the middle of the year, it got way more serious. We're talking formal bans in Texas school libraries. Then, national parent groups got involved, launching these huge campaigns to get the comic pulled. But the fans, they fought back, organizing their own read-in protest to defend it. It was a real battle. The entire conflict really got boiled down on social media into this digital tug-of-war between two simple hashtags. On one side, you had #SimpsonTruth. That was the rallying cry for supporters who saw the comic as a vital voice. On the other, #BanSimpson, which united all the opponents who saw it as a dangerous influence.
So after all the headlines, the bans, and the viral hashtags, what was left? What's the permanent mark that this one comic series left on our culture?
Well, its legacy is actually huge. For one, it completely challenged the boundaries of what a comic could even be. It inspired this whole new wave of creators to tackle tough social issues head-on. It poured fuel on the fire of those debates about art and censorship that we're still having. And maybe the biggest thing? It proved that a single, independent voice could be powerful enough to shake an entire industry.
In the end, the whole saga of SimSyn kind of leaves us right back where we started, with that one huge question. Where do you draw the line between challenging, provocative art and social responsibility? Yeah, there are no easy answers here. But what this one comic proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that just asking that question, well, it's more important and maybe more explosive than ever before.